So I suddenly started thinking about the concept of who you are when you're young and then who you are when you're old, and whether that idea that people are not able to like really remember what they were like when they were young, or relate to the person that they were when they were young, and like which part of you continues to be the same, and was that good or is that bad, that kind of thing. And I guess I don't think I really like articulated my thoughts about it, but I think I think the thing that people feel when they go from youth into something that's not quite so much youth, or if they somehow get misdirected when they're young, and then even while they're still young, they change their lives so that they're doing things that are better for them and better for other people. Uh, what they feel when they say that they feel youthful again, or they feel, it's more a question of feeling freer. That idea of being a good person, even though it can be difficult, can make you feel freer. Like you have your innocence again, that kind of thing. Although it's hard for people, it can be hard for people, like considering, especially if they've been through all sorts of things or have done things that make them feel bad once they've moved past the stage of their lives where they didn't think about whether or not those were good or bad things, right? But I think the idea of reaching some sort of maturity does not have to do with continuing to be naive. That's the thing. I mean, I think it's more a question of, the older you get, the more experience that you have, the more you know the world, um, the more the decisions that you make can both be like from a good motivation, and also be effective in the situation, whatever the situation happens to be, right? So yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and I think there are people have written about that. People have written about that, right? To like it's not enough just to be kind of a passively good person, or a good person who's not knowledgeable. Just sheer innocence is not necessarily how you want, how the like what the mental state that you want to be in. If you can't help it, you can't help it. But innocence can also, a type of mental innocence can also lead you to do things that are bad because you don't realize that they're bad, right? Or things can happen to you because you don't realize that it's going to happen, right? Or you don't realize, or when it happens to you, you don't really understand. Like, it can be painful or it can be scary or whatever it is, but you don't really understand what it is, what's happened, or any of those things, right? So I think that's something that is sometimes misunderstood with people. I mean, the idea that you can continue to feel, you have to be able to incorporate your life experience into who you are, your personality, and the way that you make decisions. That doesn't make you less good. It makes you more able to deal with things that are bad. I think that that's important. And I think, or there's the idea of like experiences that people have, that change them, right? I mean, there's that subject has really gotten a lot of attention from all sorts of situations, from things that are nonfiction to things that are fictionalized, things that happen to people that sort of like delineate their childhood or their adolescence from their childhood from their adolescence, and then their adolescence from their adulthood, that kind of thing. Except that I think the thing that is often missing when that is not really treated truthfully or with integrity is that it's not necessarily the experience that you have. It's how you develop as a person when you're going through the experience and after it's happened, and the way that you think about it and the way that you put it into perspective. That's the thing. And I think sometimes, I suppose if I were going to, like, even sort of, I think sometimes the drama of more and more and more and more bad things happening. Oh, this is bad. This is bad, but it's real. So that's good, in its own way. It really, I mean, it really has bypassed the idea of something that is supposed to be maturing, because those experiences, and the worse they are, actually, the more difficult it is for someone to get through it and be able to go on and be an integrated, healthy, productive person, rather than just be totally, totally devastated by it, and have all sorts of fragmented coping skills, and to not be either not be a functional person, either to have no resilience for life whatsoever, or to deal with it in a way that makes them destructive. I guess I hadn't really meant it. I wasn't even thinking about filming another video or talking about this stuff or writing about this, but I guess that's something to consider, because it's not just the horror of an experience or the ugliness of an experience, right? I mean, those things are not necessary to reach adulthood. And actually, again, as I've said, the more that you have of them, the harder it's going to be for you to really reach a productive adulthood. I mean, those things are in reality, those things are incredibly traumatizing. So, I mean, what's your goal? What's your goal? Is your goal to show things is your goal just to show the ugliness of life? Or is your goal to, in reality, or in fiction, or in nonfiction, or in things where people are discussing their experiences, that kind of thing, is it your goal to just rehash it or show it or whatever it is? Or is it a question of, okay, well, I mean, there's things that you can also learn from those experiences, right? I mean, one thing that I learned from some of the things that happened to me was patience, a type of patience that I had to a certain extent, like in terms of doing schoolwork, because schoolwork, you do have to, I mean, the way that I did school and the way that other people did school, who were as serious in terms of being students as I was, you do have to sit there for hours at a time. You have to be able, and you just do it after a while. I mean, it's certainly during the weekdays, Monday, Sunday through Thursday night, you're sitting there and you're doing your homework, and it's like it's just it may take you a bit, to settle down to it Sunday night, something like that. But mostly Monday through Thursday, certainly by the time. I would just sit down and do it, because I knew I wanted to get it done. I always did all of my homework. Every once in a while I would mess up, or I just couldn't get it started, or I procrastinate or something like that. But it was regularly I sat and did my homework, really did, 4 or 5 hours, something like that. My senior year in high school, I was usually up till, 1 o'clock in the morning was pretty average for me to be awake, to be finishing up, that kind of thing. I was happy if I could be done by 11, that kind of thing. But in other types of situations, you have to learn a type of patience, a real type of patience, to even in the midst of things that are extremely traumatic or extremely frightening or extremely frustrating, you do learn to especially if you've been through things a few times, you do learn that these crises, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have repercussions afterwards. As much as you may be feeling a lot of tension, there are decisions that you have to make, things you need to not do. And that's really where you can get something from those experiences. The experiences in themselves are not positive. And I think, there's no ballast to it. I'm noticing in a lot of stuff that's put out there, that is supposedly like this type of realism. Okay, but it's mostly the attention is just like on the carnage, right? And it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. Whereas something that has a real type of value, I think, in life and in fictionalized versions of things or other types of treatments of things, it's how people are dealing with it and what they get from it. And also doing things that do not create those situations in the first place. Sometimes they're unavoidable, but sometimes they're not, and that's an important part of being an adult. It's an important part of being a person. You know, it's what children are almost never able to do. You know, that's why they need adults to take care of them.